Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dean Robbins, the president of the American Solidarity Party Club here at campus. And we aim to promote Catholic social teaching and the common good. And we don't have any upcoming events to announce right now, but stay tuned for that. And today we are proud to present our first speaker of the semester, the ASP's candidate for the 2024 election, Mr. Peter Sonski. Sonski is a CUA alumnus and was Director of Communications at the National Shrine for 8 years. His employment has also included the National Catholic Register and the Knights of Columbus. He now resides in Connecticut, where he is an elected member of the District 17 Board of Education. He was originally a Democrat before switching to the Republican Party and then finally the ASP in 2018. And he is here today to talk about his journey with the ASP and his work as a candidate this election cycle. So without further ado, please welcome Peter Sonski.
Good evening, fellow cards. It's great to be here. Thank you. It's always a joy to be back in Brooklyn, and especially tonight to have the honor of addressing you as candidate for President of the United States. I'm so grateful to Dean for the invitation. It's just a tremendous honor to be back here. This pursuit, running for president, as you might expect, was not on my bucket list when I was a college student. Suffice it to say, though, it hasn't been fully engaged. So I caution you, it could happen to you. It could happen to you as well. So don't lock out opportunity. Don't dismiss the unexpected. Keep your public speaking skills sharp. So, there's an elephant in the room. Well, not an elephant, because the elephant is an association with the Republican Party. There's a pelican in the room. And as you may know, the pelican is the mascot of the American Solidarity Party. It's also a universal symbol of charity and self-sacrifice. So why am I running for president? Well, first and foremost, because I have a loose wire. My wife will attest to that. But I was, as Dean indicated, since 2018, affiliated with the American Solidarity Party. And its members this year, in its primary process, had a group of 5 candidates that this spring chose me as their presidential nominee. Now, after that, I chose, and the party's delegates ratified, Lauren Onak as my vice presidential running mate. Unlike other parties, we are already endorsed candidates. We are not working still through our primary process. So I bring up Lauren's name because Lauren and I will be attending the Dominican Rosary pilgrimage together on Saturday. So it's a great opportunity to meet her as well. She, by the way, is a Columbia graduate, magna cum laude. CUA definitely taught me to make good choices. But so why did I choose to run for president in the first place? Especially as basically an unknown candidate with the backing of a largely obscure third party. I submit to you very simply, because America needs help. American politics need revival. They're dysfunctional. Now, this may be the wrong audience, but can I get an amen? Amen. It's obvious. American political life is so profoundly disordered. It's best characterized these days as hyper-partisan, deeply flawed, actually, I'll say, broken. Last week, the Pew Research Center published an article detailing the results of recent poll findings with the following lead, and I quote, "Americans have long been critical of politicians and skeptical of the federal government. But today, Americans' views of politics and elected officials are unrelentingly negative, with little hope of improvement on the horizon. Majorities say the political process is dominated by special interests, flooded with campaign cash, and mired in partisan warfare. Elected officials are widely viewed as self-serving and ineffective." Now, we hear a lot about fake news these days. I don't think this qualifies. In fact, I suggest it's not news at all, unless it's old news. I suspect most of you would agree with the sentiments expressed in that Pew poll. Think about it. Our former president is contending with 4 open indictments, I think 91 charges. A U.S. senator was indicted last week and arraigned just yesterday, I believe, on these egregious bribery and corruption charges. Our current president is in the throes of an impeachment inquiry, not to mention tiptoeing around his son's legal woes, and he's tanking in approval rating. Hello, America! We've got a dumpster fire in Congress, we've got a dumpster fire at the White House, we've got a dumpster fire at the federal level. So whether these cases or the proceedings have any merit is really the subject of endless debate. It's certainly rich fodder for the Sunday morning political talk shows. But the majority of Americans are repulsed by this continuing saga. At the very minimum, they're just fed up and checked out. The Pew poll reported, and I was talking to some of you beforehand, the Pew poll reported 65% of respondents feel exhausted at the thought of politics. 55% admitted they became angry when they discussed politics. Just 10% felt hopeful with American politics. Optimism is welcome, but cynicism is lame. Amen? Conversely, another poll released just last week across town, Georgetown's Institute for Politics and Public Service. 94% of voters polled agree respect for each other is the first step in having a government that works. 83% in that poll, 800 respondents, 83% of the respondents in that poll agree compromise and common ground should be the goal for political leaders. The ASP motto, by the way, common good, common ground, common sense. Our two-party political system naturally divides us as a nation. It's pitting disparate mindsets in opposition to one another, each faction portraying themselves as heroes while painting the others as villains. The third party, especially the American Solidarity Party, offers the opportunity to unite us. To unite us in a manner that recognizes that the American people are three-dimensional. They're not defined exclusively by Democratic or Republican ideology. The ASP doesn't box people in. It frees them from the paradigm of duopoly. Our government institutions, however, have become distant. To people around the country, this city, Washington, D.C., the seat of our federal government, rather than the capital of our republic, seems at times far off in purity. Many view the officials elected or appointed to represent us as self-interested, seeking to further their own interests and agendas, or those of their party's elites. Likewise, many American businesses, grown and swollen and large, fail in being responsible to workers and customers, as well as in contributing to the communities in which they're located. The focus is inward, not outward. They bestride the globe in search of revenue, they cut jobs, make improvements in favor of profit, and they're more beholden to shareholders than they are to their patrons and their employees. So what's the end product of all of this? Alienation, distrust, frustration, disgust. America needs course correction. And the American Solidarity Party can provide that course correction because it's grounded in principles this country, with its Judeo-Christian foundation, has forgotten or ignored. The ASP has roots in Christian democracy, which derives from a century plus of Christian social thought mixed with pluralist politics. Now, I'm not advocating theocracy. I'm advocating a return to the grounding this nation had when the founders designed it to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. Christian democracy was born long after our nation, but it hasn't lost its principles. In the late 19th century, In the midst of the Industrial Revolution, Pope Leo XIII issued Rerum Novarum, an encyclical that addressed concern about class conflict, and it called for just wages and fair conditions for workers. Ostensibly, though, it introduced cautions about competing social forces of unrestricted capitalism and socialism, which is why it's embraced by the ASP in political philosophy. Christian democracy was also born in that era, in the late 19th century, in Europe, to provide a framework for Christian engagement with politics that was able both to reject autocratic right-wing approaches and the liberal answers that were descended from the secular French Revolution. Later, in the run-up to World War II, it adapted as a political movement in response to fascism and communism. Similarly, to provide a Christian response that avoided falling into unbridled liberalism. So what do I mean? Well, we see in socialism as well as in communism a perversion of justice. In the pursuit of equality, communists created a framework of government tyranny that attacked both the legitimate right to property ownership as well as the reasonable role of religion in society. It was characterized by a centralization of power in the state, and the rank and file were oppressed without adequate recourse to justice. Capitalism and liberalism exaggerate different values. An overemphasis on individual liberty, for example, allows business owners and executives to pursue the growth and profit at whim, like I just mentioned, regardless of consequences. Whether it's mergers and acquisitions to gain more market share, or downsizing, outsourcing to reduce operating expenses, business leaders and shareholders seldom shoulder losses. Employees and customers bear the brunt of such moves. By the way, I'll give you a little commercial. I'm reading a book called Tyranny, Inc. by Sohrab Ahmadi. Excellent book if you want to learn more about that very topic. End of commercial. So let's go back to Christian democracy. So it falls into neither of the two broad categories that I talked about. It steers clear of the extremes, but it recognizes that both the rich and the poor have a stake in government and can cooperate to create a truly just society. And it found its foundation in Catholic social teaching. Rerum Novarum became the blueprint for this teaching, and it's evolved through the 20th century, but it's never strayed from promoting the common good in human society. Successive popes have expounded or focused on the elements of Leo XIII's 1891 encyclical. Notably, Quadragesimo Anno by Pius XI, Pacem in Terris, John XXIII, Populorum Progressio by Paul VI, Centenus Annus by John Paul II. Those are landmark writings in Catholic social teaching. But I'd also mention Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti by Francis. Each of those documents is Catholic in origin, but not Catholic in exclusivity. Catholic social teaching is grounded in natural law, and it encompasses all human society, the common good. So, the American Solidarity Party has adopted those principles in 7 tenets of Catholic social teaching. Sanctity of life, social justice, community-oriented society, centrality of the family, economic security, care for the environment, peace, and international solidarity. The ASP values first and foremost human dignity. It values family and community. It endorses human rights and responsibilities, including property ownership and just remuneration. It recognizes that preferential option for the poor. It seeks solidarity with all, at home and abroad. And it hearkens to the need to steward the earth, our common home. ASP upholds this series of principles unlike any other American political party. Moreover, all of these principles are complementary. They're based firmly in natural law, on intrinsic values to our human nature. In other words, common sense. This is why the American Solidarity Party can enliven our exhausted republic. It's intrinsic for humans to seek natural order and direction. Our national aimlessness is, in part, due to a lack of common ground. All of us here know ambitions improperly directed, ambitions for ambition's sake, can lead to ruin. So who then am I? And why am I the candidate for the American Solidarity? Well, to answer the latter question first, because in my optimistic estimation, the ASP offers the best of what America can be. An America filled with opportunity, an America marked by respect for order and concern for the common good. But who is this pie-in-the-sky guy that's talking to you? Well, I'm a New England native, grandson of immigrants. My mother's family came from Canada to Connecticut in the post-Civil War. My father's family relocated here from Eastern Europe at the end of World War I. Both families were employed in the textile industry. My maternal grandfather was a World War I veteran and later a civil servant, postmaster. My father and 6 of my biological uncles were World War II veterans. John F. Kennedy was president when I was born. I grew up in a blue-collar household and registered as a Democrat at age 18. I voted for Jimmy Carter. But in time, I left the Democratic formula way back in the 1980s. In truth, it was the Democratic Party, the so-called party of the little guy, that left me when it decided the little guy in the womb was disposable. So I forayed into the Republican Party, and I held 2 elected positions at the municipal level as a GOP member. But ultimately, I became disillusioned there too. I still deeply value all the social justice that the church instilled in me. So for 2 decades after leaving the GOP, I was politically homeless until introduced to the American Solidarity Party in 2018. Dean mentioned I'm a school board member. I'm finishing my 2nd term as a regional school board member in Connecticut, and now I'm turning my focus more decidedly to carrying the ASP. So as the party's presidential nominee, I'm entering into federal politics at a time of political chaos, with the majority parties consistently at loggerheads. The daily headlines remind us of the looming federal shutdown and very little bipartisan effort to avoid it. And how much confidence did we take away from last night's Republican debate? I notice I'm part of the red tie community. If you watch the debate, everybody wears red tie. All the presidents of here. So, more about myself. My wife and I have raised 9 adult children. We're grandparents so far of 6. I see the struggles of my children to provide for themselves and their families. They have all had or are currently pursuing a post-secondary education. Yet the middle-class existence that I knew in my youth is far different from today. The cost of housing, food, transportation, healthcare, they outweigh everything in my experience. Only one of my children has owned her own home. And at the age of my older children, today, my wife and I were moving into our 3rd. I'm certain each of you feel these economic burdens too, even without my need of drawing comparisons of more than 3 decades ago. But where must we start? We have to begin with the foundation of Catholic social teaching, human dignity. We live in a culture that is willing to discard people as useless or inconvenient. Now, I refer to abortion, of course, but euthanasia too. We term it death with dignity, but isn't it really rather death that expedience? What about mass shootings? Or any shootings, really? What about scabbards, rapes, assaults? What about human trafficking? about suicide? 50,000 Americans take their lives each year. So why are people so lacking in hope? Why do they fail to have optimism? Why do they lose value in their very lives? Why are we as a society so different, or at least deficient, to help? I'll go farther about the disregard of human dignity. What about racial discrimination? What about social and class discrimination? Yes, right here in America. What about immigrants? I want to prevent drugs and crime from crossing our borders, but razor wire in the Rio Grande? What about capital punishment? Human dignity is not lost, even by the most grievous of human actions. No one is exempt from redemption. Unfair labor practices. Child labor exists here in America as well as in the third world. And the UAW members, they're looking for their fair share of the pie. I can go on, but the point is clear. America has human dignity deficiency. All of these affronts to human persons contribute to the reason why many people feel disenfranchised. It's why they're angry. We cannot designate some people as worthy of love and others to be ignored, discarded. Human life and human dignity are inviolable. Period. Full stop. Human life has to be respected and protected. Human beings must be valued, supported, encouraged, and celebrated. Human life and human dignity are inviolable. They know no age distinctions, no race distinctions, no education distinctions, no income distinctions, no political distinctions. Human life and human dignity are inviolable. We must embrace that as the first premise in every political undertaking. Whatever we do, we must do it for the benefit of human lives rather than the expense of human lives. I want to take a minute and mention how excited I was to learn about the Guadalupe project here on campus. Partners for Life, I know, was active in putting this together. I appreciate the work of administration too. I love the partnership with the St. Anne Center. I wish it had been done a couple of years ago, but I'm going to stay positive. I'm excited about the fact that it's here, and I think it's wonderful the support that we're giving to pregnant students in helping them, pregnant and mothering students. Thank you and congratulations on the Guadalupe project. So, why have I chosen to affiliate with the American Solidarity Party? Human dignity is its nexus. It fosters not only a political approach centered on human needs, but also a political approach based on human respect and civility. Human life and human dignity are inviolable. Amen? We don't find human respect among the partisan bickering on Capitol Hill or in many state houses across America. Beyond the normal political jousting that we're accustomed to, today discourse in the halls of government are defined by rancor and disgust for the opposing affiliation. Instead of seeing other lawmakers as colleagues and fellow citizens, those who disagree are viewed with aversion, if not worse. And we, as observers, we're swept in the animosity as well. We bring anger into our homes, into our families, and our dialogues. And oh, by the way, get ready, Thanksgiving is coming up. But doesn't this stem from a lack of recognition for human dignity? We need to recover what we've lost. Seeing everyone as a subject worthy of respect will do much for us. In this sense, we will curb hostilities. Now, of course, there will be those that will reject this approach and live in an aggressive way, but the American Solidarity Party desires and promotes human flourishing. People want to flourish, and people do flourish when we acknowledge their dignity. The two major parties certainly make gestures at human dignity, but their actions belie their promises. We need renewed outward focus. We need an approach that promotes human flourishing. Allow me to share a history to illustrate this. I've told this elsewhere. It's particularly germane to me, and it's very relevant on this campus. Now, I'm not a historian by education, but I do play one in real life as a museum administrator. So make note of that little factoid too. You may not remain or even ever be employed in your major field of study. We're getting pearls of wisdom. I mentioned the genesis of Catholic social teaching was with the Industrial Revolution, mid-19th century. So my story centers on two men born in that era, specifically the 1850s. Both were the sons of Irish immigrants. Both were known for sharp intellect. Both were ordained to the priesthood for the Diocese of Hartford, Connecticut. Both of them were curates, or parish assistants, simultaneously around 1882 in my current city of employment, New Haven. One of the men, Michael, never ventured more than several hundred yards from his place, several hundred miles from his place of birth. The other, Thomas, studied extensively in Europe, earning graduate degrees in both civil and canon law. Michael labored as a pastor. He labored diligently among the faithful. Largely that faithful were immigrants like his own family. They were seeking to become part of the fabric of American life, American industry, while still holding tightly to the religion of their upbringing. Thomas pursued the path of academia, becoming a university professor and ultimately an administrator. Michael saw the plight of families and workers who struggled in unfamiliar and often unwelcome conditions. He began a fledgling movement to unite Catholics together in common bonds of faith and mutual support of one another, along with benevolent outreach in their communities. In the mind of Pope Francis, Michael was a shepherd with the smell of sheep. Thomas met with popes and presidents. He was equally grounded and industrious. Thomas was also instrumental in founding a charitable organization, the National Conference of Catholic Charities, now known as Catholic Charities USA. And he became its first president in 1910. His legacy would be defined by another initiative, however, giving the Catholic Church its largest tangible presence in America, akin in many ways to what he had observed in Europe. Michael, as I suspect you have deduced, was Father Michael McGivney, parish priest and founder of the Knights of Columbus. At his death in 1890, his fraternal organization was a mere fraction of the size and charitable scope that it is today. And after a delay of more than a century, his cause for sainthood was open, and he was beatified in 2020. He encouraged laymen to live faith in unity with others and in charitable actions. Thomas, as I hope some of you have used, was Bishop Thomas Shane, rector of the Catholic University of America and founder of the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. That majestic church was only a basement at his death in 1932. But, like Michael, his confrere, Thomas's vision did not die with him. These two men, Hartford priests, contemporaries, walked different paths. Their legacies are cemented, however. One, the founder of America's largest lay Catholic organization. The other, the founder of the Mother Church of American Catholicism. They are appropriately remembered with identical academic buildings side by side at the center of this campus, named in their honor. Too many students each year graduate without knowing that story, but you will not be among them. And I hope you'll never look at those two buildings the same. My larger message, though, is this. Michael McGivney and Thomas Shane were products of tumultuous times in America and beyond. As we've discussed, that time, that mid-19th century, spawned Catholic social teaching and its continuing focus on human life and human interaction. This focus indeed harkens from Christian roots, but as I said before, it's nonetheless applicable and beneficial in every way across our pluralistic society. Michael and Thomas acted rather than watched. They didn't wait for a better timing. They didn't assume someone else would find a remedy for society's needs. And by the way, they didn't have the promise of success. What they had was determination and a focus on human needs. Well, they walked different paths. They shared the same purpose, centered on the well-being of others. Can we even begin to estimate the impact of the Knights of Columbus and Catholic Charities, what it's had across America in the century plus of that outreach? Can we properly estimate the importance of that majestic church to the Catholic faithful in America a century ago? Even when it was a basin, even when it was just an ambition, it told the nation Catholics are here to stay in a big way. Thank you, Blessed Michael McGill. Thank you, Bishop Thomas Shannon, for your perseverance in vision, your perseverance in faith. I'm reminded of Mother Teresa's famous quote: God calls us not to be successful, but to be faithful. So to be sure, this audience contains some future leaders of the American Church, of American enterprise, and of the American political system, at least I hope. You are needed to move America in the right direction. If you're here, it means to me you have a love for a country's future. I hope you have a love for its needy, its marginalized, the underdog. That is the vision that the ASP holds. Please, follow the example of Michael and Thomas. Put your talents in service of the community. And if you want to put your talents in service of the campaign, I welcome that too. In closing, I'll be honest. I acknowledge that my political quest is completely uphill. Politely, people who know me call me ambitious. So I am. But victory is measured in different ways. Should I not, in January 2025, become a resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, I will, nonetheless, consider a win if renewed respect for human dignity through my modest campaign efforts find through in our American political landscape. And you tonight have given me the opportunity to sow those seeds in Washington, for which I'm very grateful. God bless you. I want you to know that you got a twofer tonight, because I'm not the only presidential candidate. Teresa is a pro-life Democrat running for the Democratic president. This is my favorite oxymoron. Thank you so much for being here. Are there questions from the group?
Yeah, we're going to open up the floor to any questions right now, if anyone has any.
Yeah, so you were saying that it's like more of a modest campaign. So I guess my question is, what can we do to help promote your campaign and spread the message?
Do exactly what you just said. Spread the message. Talk to your friends, talk to your classmates, talk to your family, talk to your enemies. Tell them that this is a legitimate campaign. I can't do that alone. The party is still a fledgling party. It still needs to get greater exposure. It still needs to grow in size and in influence. And so what I ask you to do is be an ambassador. Certainly you can volunteer to help me in the campaign, but can you write a letter to the editor? Can you post something on social media? Can you share with a group what you heard tonight and what you believe about the ASP and the potential that it has for the good of America? That's how we're going to grow. And that's, as I alluded to toward the end of my talk, I think was an achievable goal. I don't know that I've got even the chance of getting on the ballot to get to 270 electoral votes. But I do have the possibility of reaching 50 states and telling them that the ASP provides a viable option to what to do after the business.
Thank you.
me start by saying thank you. I'm a big fan of the Solidarity Party. I think you guys are doing great work. Really, really agree with everything you said tonight. With that being said, I will unequivocally be voting for Donald Trump in the 2024 election, and I'll go through a couple of reasons. We look at the 2016 election. In Michigan, for example, Larry Johnson got 3.6% of the votes, and that was a gap of 0.3%. So if 1 in every 12 Johnson voters had voted for Hillary Clinton, she would have won the state. And we see the same thing in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida. So knowing that there is a 0.001% chance that you will win, why should we vote for a mere statement to people over actually increasing the chance of saving babies, saving a culture, which we can do with voting for Donald Trump? And I agree that you're much, much better, but let's face it, you're not going to win. And I'd rather vote for someone that can actually do some of the good, a tenth of the good, a thousandth of the good that you can do, but has 1,000 times greater of a chance than you do of winning.
Well, thanks for your candor. I appreciate it. I don't necessarily agree with Donald Trump saving babies after the last couple of statements I've heard. But you make a valuable argument. Look, in a presidential election, which is different from most of our other federal elections, where people are elected by plurality, you're elected by electoral college. In my state of Connecticut, people can vote for me, and it's going to make no impact at all, because in Connecticut, the Democratic candidate, whoever it is going to be the person that gets all of those electoral college votes. And that's the case in many states, except for probably 6 or 7. Beyond that, though, you're voting your conscience. You're voting for something in which you believe. If you truly believe that Donald Trump is the better answer for America, then vote for Donald Trump. But if you believe that values that I share are better for America, vote for me. Because the day after the election, people are going to be looking in the newspaper, and they're going to say, Donald Trump got this many million votes. Joe Biden, or whoever the Republican or the Democratic nominee is, got this many votes. But what about this guy Sonski? He got 1,000 votes. What do 1,000 people know that I don't? Why did they vote for him?
You need the people to be looking at the papers like, oh, let's see who got the 1/10 of the 1,000th of the vote.
I think people who are truly interested do that, yes.
Okay.
I certainly do. I certainly do. Because I care about America, and I like to see how people are reacting. So, if you think that you have a better choice, then I encourage you. Vote the choice that you think is better for America. But for those of you who want to vote with conscience, I invite you to consider, is your vote really a wasted vote if you're voting for something in which you truly believe?
Questions?
If you become president, what would the foreign policy be, especially regarding North Europe?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. It was foreign policy, and what was the rest of it?
North Europe.
Oh, okay, Ukraine war. Okay. I mean, I've been rather specific throughout the course of my candidacy, and now throughout my time as a nominee. With regard to the war that's going on in Ukraine, first and foremost, diplomacy. First and foremost, every effort that we can employ to bring people to the table to resolve it in a diplomatic way. I support all of the sanctions against Russia. I think Russia is the aggressor, and Russia is the one. I support every humanitarian relief effort and aid for the people of Ukraine. I support defensive weapons for Ukraine so that they can protect themselves and not be able to defend themselves.
Would you have supported blowing up Nord Stream?
No, I would not have supported Nord Stream.
As a Catholic, how can you give money, how can you give support to a country that's literally shutting down Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches? If you're pro-religion, which Ukraine has done, they've shut down Russian Catholic and Russian Orthodox
Sure,
churches.
I understand that, but I'm also talking about humanitarian aid for people and an opportunity to protect themselves from being overrun by an aggressor.
That's participation in evil either way.
I don't think that giving people an opportunity to defend themselves when they don't have that on their own completely is participation.
So what he said that the money's going to other things, just the military itself. They support it in other ways too.
Okay. Seems like you have Donald Trump's opinion. Dr. New.
Thank you. Over a year ago, Broad was achieved a historic victory after over 4 years plus 50 years ago in terms of living wage. Since that time, we've not really seen a lot of leadership from a lot of companies. We've seen a lot of compromise. We've seen a lot of litigation. So a few questions for you. If elected president, number one, will you support a federal ban on abortion? Number two, will you support, will your budget include a total defunding of Planned Parenthood? And number three, will you issue presidential pardons to the 8th grade pro-lifers who are currently in jail to face their violations?
Yes. Let me start with the last part. I think I was the first candidate to go public to say that I would support those that have been jailed, and I would call for a repeal. I would pardon those unjustly convicted in the last month's time. And let me go to the very first comment you made about not much support from the Republicans since the Dobbs decision. I would say we didn't have a lot of support from the Republicans for a long time before that, too. But to your point, as far as it goes to defunding Planned Parenthood, absolutely, positively, 100%. Reinstate the Mexico City policy, get done with all of these new provisions that are being imposed upon us, get rid of all of Biden's executive orders that he signed when he became his president to advance the abortion agenda, and those that were signed and put in place after the Dobbs decision. All of that. Was there another thing that I missed?
Abortion ban.
Sign an abortion ban?
Federal abortion ban.
A federal abortion ban? Certainly. I think we have to pursue an abortion ban on a national level. Some would say that this is a state issue, and to be sure, there is many state issues, but the reality is there's going to be a continued movement to make abortion legal on a federal level again. I think we have to do everything that we possibly can to prevent that from happening. Legislative, not just from the judiciary.
Would you be open to collaborating with socialist forces on the left, I would say associated with, let's say, Latin America or Europe, historically Catholic regions of the world, joint efforts to combat neoliberal imperialism, etc., global issues like global warming?
I'm in favor of alliances. I'm in favor of opportunities to work with individuals in areas where there's mutual agreement toward a common goal, a common good. You don't have to be fully in agreement with another individual, another agency, another country, another organization to work collaboratively for some good outcome for society. So yes, in select cases, global agreements. I've left you speechless. Not my ambition. Well, listen, I'll be around. I'd love to talk to you individually. I'm very grateful for your comment. Please, like the first question I asked, spread the word, share it on social media, share it with your friends, your family, anyone you know. Help us to get the word out, because as a small party, we don't have a lot of resources to do it. When I say resources, obviously money, but I also mean manpower. We're limited. But we've got to tolerate it.